Well, something I wanted to ask, because I'm not sure I fully understand this, but I'm going to do my best to piece together my understanding. And I really am curious to see what you think about this. So at the end of the episode, we have um, Bo Katan, who's been told by the armor, you can take your helmet off. Now, everything this season has been very like deeply rooted in religion and faith, and there's a spirituality aspect to it. And what I find interesting is when she leaves the cave, they say she doesn't cover her face. To me, it seemed really symbolic of like there's a lot of folks who they'll interpret like the New Testament where they say, well, Jewish people, they don't eat pork and they don't do this and they don't do that. But when you go out, you can represent yourself differently. If you eat with them, you can do these things, or you can't because you're kind of walking like that. You're not going to ask the Gentiles to do this one thing. If we're going to talk with them and, eat with them and whatever, just don't cause your brother to stumble and you're good. So it kind of had that sort of vibe for me where it's like, well, she's not really one of us. She walks both worlds. We're not going to ask her to walk our way, which is interesting because it seemed like she's kind of changing the rules here. But it seems like it's kind of pulling from that New Testament way of thinking to say, well, all these other people don't wear their helmets. And if we really want to regain Mandalore, we need to meet people where they are now. So it seems like it's pulling from that. I'd love to know what you are all thinking. And also, I'm curious, does the armor have just ulterior motives here? Is there something else going on? Because again, she did tell Bo-Katan earlier on, well, never took off your helmet. I don't know. I guess you can. Stay. Now she's like, well, you saw the mythosaur, so do what you want. Just a very different tone than the previous episode.
I think she was testing Bo this whole time. I think that's what this whole thing was. Because her tone kind of changed the second that Bo-Katan mentioned the mythosaur. And that's when I was like, okay, interesting. And it felt like the armor was almost the whole time challenging her to see, well, can she live in and respect how we are living? And I think once she proved that, not only by saving the foundling, not only by living by their rules, but by doing it successfully and by giving, the Mandalorian some good PR, that's when she was like, all right, she respects us. She's not going to try to strip us of what we have. So she can lead us in whichever way she sees fit.
Interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree with more of that testing period. She's feeling out what's going on. Like we mentioned before, she wasn't revealing her cards about confirming. She was kind of first playing it off like, oh, you saw a vision or whatever of the mythosaur. And Bo-Katan wasn't coming out forthright with that information as well. But I think Bo demonstrated a lot of like loyalty and worth to the overall Church of Mandalore, if you want to call it. So I think the armor was more genuine than misleading, but I mean, that's how I saw it. What do you think, Amanda?
I agree. I think you said that all really perfectly. I don't think the armor has any ulterior motives. I think, I think watching Bo-Katan, she could have gone out and been like telling everyone, like, I just saw a mythosaur. Like, you won't believe it. Like, we should all go back to Mandalore right now, and try to rule her own way or use that to leverage influence over people. And really, the only person she ended up telling was the armor. And I think the armor saw that as like really, truly a leadership style. But one thing I didn't like, or that made me like pause for a moment, was when, she comes out to all of the Mandalorians by her ship. And when Paz like looks over at Din to get like approval that she can lead, I was like, this is weird because Paz just agreed and like stood up for Din in that conversation that they had to take Navarro. And he's clearly has Din's back, but is he like, what's this woman doing leading Mandalore?
I see. And maybe like my perspective from that is, I think you might be asking too much of Paz Vizsla, because we're already seeing him say, okay, now we're going to start sacrificing or giving up our lives for non-Mandalorians, which I think is a leap for Paz, but like it's a good one for him. I think asking him to then start dismantling his whole religion and belief and just accepting someone doesn't have their helmet, like man or woman, I think just making him accept that right away, I think that's just too much to ask for someone who's either grown up or been like infused with this beliefs.
Yeah.
I didn't see it more so as that, but
That's a
maybe
good
that's
observation.
because I'm just a white cisgendered male, you know.
I love the awareness.
But I will say maybe part of why the armor got to this point, it was after Paz Vizsla's speech. You know, she is seeing her tribe is ready for something like that. It wasn't like her executively making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I think that was a big turning point speech for her. I loved that speech of his. Right when he was going off, I was like, oh, I bet you he's gonna like turn this into something.
Jake and I were like, watch, he's gonna be such a dick about it. Like we hate Paz, and then all of a sudden he was like, yeah, you know what, we're gonna do it. I was like, oh, Paz,
why should we do it? Because we're Mandalorians.
Hell yeah.
I was like, wow, all right. We weren't expecting that direction, but we'll take it. Thanks. Kind of came out a little aggressive in the beginning there. Weren't expecting you to take that turn, but here we are.
I almost wonder if narratively they're trying to set up like a half of them want Din, half of them want Bo situation. So when I saw that little like head nod thing, that was kind of like my first thought, is as almost like they think Din is like ruling from the shadows in a not at all kind of way.
Who do you want?
I'm in my Bo-Katan era.
Same.
Because here's my thing. I don't see Din as a leader. I don't. I think he is a good man. I think he is a good father. I don't see Din as being able to command a large group of people. He has lived on the outskirts for too long to fill those shoes. And I think Bo-Katan can, after, everything she's done wrong.
Yeah. Christian, what do you think?
I don't have a problem with either. I think it makes a lot more sense, especially on paper, for Bo.
Yeah.
I think it would mean more, especially to her too.
She's just slaying too, like with her haircut. Like it always looks good. Oh my gosh, her like little half smile smirk at the end, like just she slays every time.
I agree with all of you. Here's my only thing I'm going to say to that. As of right now, she is by and large the clear-cut favorite choice for the person who should lead Mandalore. But what's really interesting is what I think we've seen with like a lot of some of the great leaders in human history are folks who didn't necessarily go out of their way for wanting power and wanting to be the leader, but the situation just kept getting thrust on themselves and they just stepped up to the call in that moment. So as of right now, yes, she's walked the walk, talked the talk. She's been in that position before. Yes, she clearly appears to be the better leader. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they go the route of Din Djarin, because it's just duty
I wouldn't
calls.
be surprised either.
But I mean, look at the dynamic duo that they are. Like this whole episode,
they both need to parent him. The Grogu.
They
marriage, Darksaber, unite.
Din in the N1, pulls a bunch of fighters off of him, and that leaves Bo-Katan to do her maneuver. Like they were grossly outnumbered, and they still like supported each other, and like they wouldn't have been able to be successful if it wasn't for both of them.
Yeah. I don't see them as a relationship, and I really truly hope that they don't go that way.
Yeah.
But I do think they are hopefully leading towards some type of like ruling union. Because I do think if they find a way to reinstate Mandalore in that direction, I don't think they're going to do it in a, traditionally Mandalorian sense. I think they are going to say like, oh, we're ushering a new era in. We have one guy with a mask and, woman without one. Woo.
Have different representatives like coming
yes.
to like, table.
Yeah.
This child shall lead us.
Makes so